Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another astral interview. This one's unique. I contacted Shelora this morning to remind her of a specific thing because of a dream I had. So let me share this dream with you. So I actually had it 2 days in a row, and there was a slight difference on the second day. But here's what happens in the dream. So it starts out with the setting as me sitting on the beach. There's nothing and no one around. There's just me. I can't see any buildings. I can see the horizon. I can see the sun. It's a beautiful day. And I'm just sitting there and with my arms around my knees on the beach. And all of a sudden, and I have to say it because I knew right away it was the Mother Mary. The Mother Mary comes and sits beside me. Now, she wasn't in any form. It was light. It was it felt, I get the sense of a white robe too. And she just comes and sits beside me in the same position I was sitting in. And the feeling I felt was, wow, because she's sitting beside me of all things. And as I'm sitting there, she says to me, "You are the peacekeeper." And when she says that, in my head, in my heart, I'm like, well, what does that mean? So my next words to her are, what does that mean, Mama? And she says, "You are the peacekeeper again." And then she says, "Look at your hands." And so then I go like this, to look at my hands. And I look at my hands and they're glowing. And then all of a sudden, bing, 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 all my fingers, each one of them on the tips light up. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, I have this memory suddenly. Oh, I remember. Shelora told me I belong to the category of peace. Is that what you mean, Mama? And she says, "No, my love, you are the peacekeeper." And she says again, "You're the peacekeeper, my love. You are the peacekeeper." And that was the end of my dream. Now, that day was a very busy day for me. And the next day was a really busy day for me. So I didn't sleep very well. I worked all day and then I had a nap. And then in that nap time, I had the exact same dream, except the words this time weren't peacekeeper. They were peace speaker. And everything else was identical, but no, my love, you're the peace speaker. And so right away, I'm like, okay, first day I had it, I thought of Shelora, but I didn't really do anything about it, didn't call her or anything. Maybe I had it a second time, and I had all these thoughts go through my head. Did I have a second dream because I heard it wrong the first time? Did she really say peace speaker and I heard peacekeeper? Or is she coming back to emphasize this? Or does she want me to contact Shelora because I brought up Shelora and, I was thinking about her, but I never contacted her. Anyways, after 2 nights of having this dream, I thought, I got to call Shelora. Now, why am I calling Shelora? I'm calling Shelora because, and what did I mean when I said to her, Shelora told me this? Well, years back, 10 years back, I ran a metaphysical store. And those of you who know, it was called Astral Connections. I didn't run it, actually. Lois Vanetz ran it. I helped her. And it was her store. I helped her run it and I helped her manage it. And Shelora was one of the people we had there who came to do workshops. Her workshops had to do with hand analysis. And so I was one of the very first people that I believe she did the hand analysis for in the store anyways. And she told me I had very unique hands and that and then after the reading, she said I belong to is it School of Peace?
It is.
I belong to the School of Peace. And so I contacted Shelora today because I'm like, I have no idea where my notes are for that. She might have them. I went, scrounge through my stuff.
And
But
I do.
And she did. And so I contacted her and I said, Shelora, and I told her all about my dream from beginning to end. And she had all these things to say. And we decided to just have a meeting and make a recording of exactly what she shared with me back then and what she has to share now. Shelora is a very special person. I met her 10 years ago and we've stayed friends since. And I learned a lot from her. She did some workshops there on hand analysis, and the hand analysis that she got her certification in is something that I really feel that anyone who wants to know more about themselves, their purpose, why they're here, should contact Shelora and get this hand reading done. And especially after these last 2 nights, after talking to her this morning, because there's so much in our hands. Our life is in our hands, our history is in our hands, our future can be in our hands. And so anyways, I contacted Shelora to share with me, remind me what she told me before, and to share with me anything new after I told her about the dream. And here we are with Shelora Fitzgerald now, and I'm hoping that she can shed some light on these 2 dreams I've had, share my past history of the reading she did with me. And she actually has the album with my handprints in it still, and my note and the notes she took and all. And so she's going to share that with us and hopefully share with us what her hand analysis certification she has is all about, what she does, and how anyone can get this done from her if they want to. Welcome, Shelora. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for taking my call this morning and for helping me, come to peace with this whole idea of this dream I had.
Come to peace. What an interesting way of putting it. Well, my goodness, I just looked at the clock and I just realized, we've been on the phone for hours and it's like no time has passed at all. I thought it was, my goodness. Anyway, it was interesting that you said what's in our hands is our future and our possibility and so on. I like to say we're in God's hands and God's in our hands.
Wow, beautiful. That's very beautiful. Thank you.
It's like the cosmic signature. It's the handwriting of God. And I have spent a lifetime, literally, studying different maps of consciousness and everything from astrology to the Qing to the tarot to
dream analysis, you told me just a little while ago.
Yes, and I have a master's in counseling psychology. But when I discovered hand analysis, I found that it was something big enough to keep my attention because there's so many layers, and it just gets deeper and deeper the more you go into it. And then out of that, I recently discovered the art of human design, which overlays all of these maps, but it doesn't include hand analysis, but it's taught by a hand analyst. So I'm discovering connections between all of these systems, and there is a universal order and truth and structure, the deep structure of the universe.
There's a language that we can rely on to learn about ourselves, basically, and it's within us. Like you said, God is in our hands and we're in his hands.
Yeah, exactly. So the first thing that I did was correct your use of language as the peace category, and she was trying to correct you in the sense of the language that hand analysis uses is the school of peace, which let me just give you a little bit of the vocabulary. of the structure of hand analysis so that
Please.
you can have a sense of where I'm going with this when I talk about
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely.
Okay. So first of all, I want to acknowledge that my teacher, master teacher really, is Richard Unger. And he wrote a book called Life Prints. And it's been translated into, I think, 7 or 8 languages, including Russian, for goodness sakes.
Right.
And he stopped counting at about 60,000 pairs of hands, which, and he started, when he started reading hands, he was a financial advisor or something weird. But he had read about 12,000 pairs of hands before he realized there was nothing in any of the multiplicity of books that he had read about fingerprints. And so he started doing research, trying to find something. And in the medical literature, he found there was a book that was written in 1933, and it was called Fingerprints, Palms, and Soles, S-O-L-E-S. And there was one copy, the literary term is one copy extant, meaning in Latin, in existence.
Yeah.
And it was in the medical library in Houston, Houston, Texas. And so he got access, and he had the white gloves on, wasn't allowed to take notes or anything. And he's holding this book in his hands, and he hears fingerprints, palms, or soles, and soles, S-O-U-L-S. And then he said he downloaded this system in about 3 to 5 minutes, and it was like remembering something he already knew.
Wow.
And
wow.
My
So
friend,
did he elaborate on what he meant by downloaded? Did he elaborate on that?
Nope.
No.
It was just
It just happened
remembering it. And yes, and it was easy, and it's been the basis of his work ever since. And we have 10 fingers.
Yeah.
And each of them has a different meaning. And these are the things that he taught me in the intensive. There was a man who had flown from Moscow to my friend Sandy Levy's living room to take this course with Richard. And he told him that the book had been translated into Russian, because Richard didn't know that. It was like that's once you're famous, I guess, or renowned or whatever, it spreads like that.
Right.
And he doesn't, get the benefit of that. It doesn't matter. That's a sidebar. The important thing is that he said, that hand analysis had been in existence for millennia, not centuries. And Aristotle based his philosophy on the hand, and that he read, among others, the hand of Alexander the Great.
Wow.
And Aristotle is known as the philosopher king.
Right.
And he was a bit of a grumpy old man, apparently.
Right.
He didn't suffer fools gladly. He was abrupt and to the point. And
yeah.
He was, say it again.
Absolutely.
You broke up.
He was rigid and strict, and
yes,
he was rigid, strict, and it was, yeah, exactly the way you put it about the fools.
And that is the personality of Richard Unger, but with a big helping or a side dose or whatever of humor, because he's aware. Okay. Now, my friend Sandy had called me and said Shelora, you have to have your hands read to find out what your life purpose is.
Right.
And I said, Sandy, thank you very much for the invitation, but you live in Bellingham. I live in Vancouver. I don't have the money
Right.
for gas.
Right.
And
You told us
I
whole
don't even have.
story. You told us whole story in our previous interview.
Ah, okay. So, I didn't have the $35. She invited me,
Yeah.
but I arrived last, and he did my reading, and he said, huh, you don't have to be a good girl to be loved.
Mhm.
And he said, your mother, I don't know if he said actually that, but to belong in your family, you had a choice. You could either speak your truth
Right.
or remain silent. And if you stayed silent, you would be included in the family. And if you spoke out, you would be exercised, expelled. And I was.
Right.
However, after that reading, he said, it's not easy to speak your truth. People say it as if it were just a matter of choice, but it's not so easy when you have 300 people in your basement that you are responsible for protecting from the Nazis, or the Romans come to collect the taxes and you speak up against them. However, the first thing he said to the whole room was, you have at least 3 books in you. And that's true. And I have been writing these books forever. It's one, and I realized at some point it's a trilogy. And I don't know how he knew that, but he knew. And so I just immediately said, I have to learn this. And I didn't have any money, and I had no way of doing it, but somehow I found a way. And I not only got certified as a hand analyst, I took another 2 years on top of that and became an advanced hand analyst. And there's probably about 150 of us, maybe 160 on the planet.
Right.
I'm still in touch with him.
And just so everyone knows, when Shelora did her hand analysis for me, it was before she became an expert and an advanced hand analyst. So when
I
she
just had 1 year of training at that point.
That's right. That's right. Go ahead. Do you want to talk now about the hand?
Yes, I'm going to bring you into, because I want you to understand what the fundamentals of it are. Okay, so the concept is that we're in Earth School and we sign up for certain curriculum while we're here.
Right.
And the 4 schools or departments, shall we say, in Earth School are service, love, wisdom, and peace. 25% of humanity, and this is based on statistics actually from Scotland Yard, and fingerprints, and just extrapolated from that. 25% of humanity is in the school of service, which is represented by what's called a whirl, which is like a circle with a dot in the center. It's kind of like the galaxy whirling. And you can see that in a fingerprint, okay? The second school is love, which is a loop.
Right.
Swirls in from one side, turns around and goes back out the same side. And that stands for the school of love. 70% of humanity is in the school of love. So we've got 25% and 70%, that's 95% of humanity are in service of love. That leaves 5%. And how many schools? 4, which means 2 schools left for that 5%. 2.9% are in the school of wisdom, which is represented by the tented arch. It looks like a tent pole up the middle of the fingerprint. And the last is the School of Peace, which is 2.1%, which is just an arch, which, my dear, is a wave
Right.
on the ocean.
Right.
Where were you? You were sitting on the sand looking at the ocean.
The ocean. Yes. Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yes.
That just, yeah.
Yeah.
So that gentle arch, if you look at your fingerprints, is
Right.
there's just waves across your finger.
Right.
So actually, it makes complete sense to me that you are a peace speaker. Now, there's other variables. So a hand has a shape, okay? And obviously we have 10 fingers, but you asked me an interesting question this morning because you said, you got to read my hand again. Can your hands change? And I said, the fingerprints do not change, but the lines and markers in the palms can and sometimes do. So she said, do you by any chance still have my prints? And of course I do, because I keep everything. And I went and got them. And with the benefit of the additional training, I'm now seeing them through even more well-educated eyes.
Right.
At first, you can't even see the difference between the kinds of fingerprints. And not only does Shahiroz have 8 arches in her fingerprints, they're on all 4 fingers, but her thumbs are loops, okay? There's a ranking system, and in her particular case, because there are, I guess it's because there are fewer, whatever, the reason is they're the lowest ranks because they're the least occurring prints, the peace ones, the arches, and the loops are higher ranked. She also has, you also have, loops in both your palms. In this area of the hand is called the moon. And why is it called the moon? Try this.
Please.
I'm about to tell you. Try and touch that part of your hand with your thumb.
Can't get there.
Can't get there. Okay. So let me tell you a little bit of the science about what a hand is. Hands are formed in utero between the 14th and 16th week.
Okay.
Before they become hands,
Right.
each hand is composed of 11 volar pads, which is kind of like golf ball shaped things of different sizes. So a bigger one here and here, 11. So, but the fingerprints are 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And
there you
the
have the
fingerprints,
11.
yeah, 11, 11, 22.
Right. Which
My
is me,
children were born at 11, 22. They
which
are,
is again because I'm a 22.
you're a 22?
January 22.
Of course you are. 122. And what time did we decide to do this show? At 211.
Yeah.
So, you know, 2 is the number. I mean, there's another system. There's the Enneagram. There's the numerology. They're all intertwined. The Kabbalah, you know, the Tree of Life, all of these wonderful
Systems.
teachings that the Ascended Masters have given us, including, you know, for me, the greatest teaching of them all is A Course in Miracles, because it was delivered through a Jewish Irish woman who was 5'1" and was born on Bastille Day, July 14th, named Helen Schuckman. And that's me. I'm 5'1". My father was Irish and my mother was Jewish. And I was born on Bastille Day in the middle of World War II. So every time there's a revolution on the planet, apparently I show up. And we are in one right now.
Right
and
now.
This is the peace revolution. It's like
Right.
what we make of all this upheaval and chaos, what comes into that vacuum is critical, in my view, for the future of humanity. So literally, God is in our hands and we are in God's hands. But it's even, there's a scripture in Isaiah or something in the Bible. When David, it's in the Psalms, and David says, don't abandon me to God. And God says, I have inscribed you. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm not. I moved. I have inscribed you in the palms of my hands.
I'm like you, Shelora.
Yeah.
I don't know what's wrong lately. The tears don't fall like they used to, but the breath still does its thing.
Yeah. So it's not an accident that you phoned me this morning and said you had a dream that Mother Mary came to you and told you you were the peacekeeper and the peace speaker. And what this is a chart showing your fingerprints. And this is the symbol language that I taught at the workshops, is that's a loop. This one is a squashed loop, which means it's a smaller loop on your left thumb.
Right.
And then these straight lines are the symbols of the arches. And you have 8 of them, and I've never before or since met anyone with that many, except for a little 3-year-old girl at a psychic fair. Yep. And her grandmother was having a reading and she asked for one. She was 3. And she knew, I want that, she said. And so I did it. And then her dad came in and I said, this is a peacekeeper. And you look after her and make sure she's safe. This just came back to me. So I wasn't entirely accurate in saying you're the only one. You and a 3-year-old somewhere. And I have her reading somewhere. Or maybe she didn't have 8, maybe she had 5 or 6, but still a lot. And it's rare, rare, rare. So in hand analysis talk, we call that the la-di-da.
Did you not also tell me that Wayne Dyer's daughter also has peace?
She didn't have 8, but that's really good remembering, because I was going to tell you about that. She had hers on the thumb. And I said, so you were the peacekeeper in the family. And she went, yeah, I was. She really let that land.
Right.
One of my few regrets is I connected with Wayne after one of his talks at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre. It was the stage where he was going back barefoot and he would just wear black, and he was completely bald and he had a black beret, and he would sit with his coffee table in front of him with all his sacred texts.
Yeah.
And I just waited till the theater had emptied out, and I went down and I waited for him to pack up his things. He's still on the stage. And then he turned around, he saw me and he came and he knelt down and we had a bit of a conversation. And then he went back to doing what he was doing. And I went out the door beside the stage, and I went out in the hall, and there he was, and he lights up and he says, oh, are you coming to the VIP dinner with me? And I said, no, I didn't buy a ticket. What an idiot. Because he would have, he would have taken me in on his arm and I wouldn't have had to pay. But I just didn't think. But other than that, he used to joke because he was 6'2" or 3, and I am 5'1", unless I'm shrinking, who knows? Anyway, so you, with these loops in your palms as well, and on your thumbs, you're supposed to be a spiritual teacher, a teacher of peace. That's what you're here to do. And you're supposed to be successful in material terms by doing that.
Okay.
Which is why, as soon as, like, this is how it works for me. I just kind of go, and it lands, and I get a picture or an intuition or a knowing, and somehow I just realized you're supposed to get your message of peace out to a wider audience. And I said, you need a YouTube channel. And I think it's the peacekeeper. First, I thought it was the peace seeker, but it's time to stop seeking and start keeping the peace. Yeah. And up until now, come to think of it, who has been called the peacekeepers of the planet? Canadians.
Mm-hmm.
Policemen are supposed to be keepers of the peace. Are they doing that? Let me think about that really hard. I think no. And those who do are dying because they're trying.
Right.
And that's not okay. You know, as I was saying earlier, it's just not okay.
Yeah.
And so we have to step up.
Agreed.
Dr. Cornel West, who is a professor of theology at Harvard, they just let him go. They wouldn't give him tenure again. So he went to another university. But Don Lemon interviewed him on CNN, and he brought him to tears because he reminded, he's just published a book, and he reminded, Cornell reminded Don Lemon that he had written to his nephew that he would not stand silent. And Cornell was so passionate about the George Floyd murder. And he said, no, I will not stand silent while my brother is being murdered in front of my eyes.
Wow.
And that is so powerful.
It is so powerful.
The patience and the love
Absolutely.
that has kept the African Americans strong and steadfast, no matter what, and fighting for the poor and the downtrodden, and lifted up by the love of Christ, truly.
Right.
Who said, the least of these, right? The stranger and the least of these, unless, you know, as you treat them, so shall you treat me, and do unto others as you would have them do unto you. In other words, Jesus was a Jewish socialist. And a democratic socialist, like Bernie Sanders. You know, he was a man of the people, and he fed the masses with 2 loaves and 5 fishes. And that's how it works. You share what you have, and it expands. And that is the nature of a miracle.
Absolutely.
So we're in a time of signs and wonders. And what else did he say? He said, all this and more you too shall do. When people were trying to make him special because he could do miracles,
you too shall do. Yeah,
that's right.
Absolutely.
And you know, I didn't know even what your religion is, but I know from the way you speak, Ms. Peace Speaker, that you have seen the Lord just as I have. I wasn't raised Christian. I wasn't raised Jewish. I was raised Unitarian, because at some point there was a form on the forms we had to fill out at school, and it said religion. And I said, what religion are we? And they didn't know. So I said, I'm going to find us a religion. And I found the Unitarian Church, which is eclectic and studies all religions. Yay.
Right. Nice. So I was born into a Muslim family, Ismaili Muslim, and Islam, as you know, means?
I don't know. Peace. It must.
Islam means peace.
Wow.
And
well, I will tell you that on my trip,
it says in the Quran that I've perfected your religion for you this day, and it is Islam. I perfected your religion this day today, and it is peace.
Wow. Woo. When I was in Morocco, I felt safer there than I did, for instance, in Spain, where my laptop was stolen and I was,
Right,
all kinds of things happened.
right,
But they took me in,
right.
and I spoke French, so I could bridge that gap.
Sure.
And I went into the desert on a camel for 3 days. And on the third day, my guide, Barak, was walking, leading the camel, and he was singing. And then he stopped singing. I don't know what, probably in Arabic or Berber. And I found myself singing in a language I didn't know. I knew one word, and it was Yerushalayim, which is Hebrew for Jerusalem.
Jerusalem. That's right.
Yeah.
Which is also land of peace, right? Salam is peace.
Okay. Thank you, teacher of peace. Yeah, this feels like a very good day.
It is. Well, it's Easter Sunday. It's the resurrection day, right?
That's right.
Or the resurrection weekend. I'm not sure of the
No, it's
exact
the
date.
resurrection day.
Okay.
So Good Friday is the day that he suffered, apparently, and died on the cross.
Right.
And that's Friday, and Sunday is when they went to the cave and he wasn't there. He had arisen.
So earlier today, you mentioned something about the cross when you were talking about my hand. What was that all about?
The cross?
That there
Oh,
some kind of imprint in my hand that was a cross? or
oh
something?
no, not a cross.
Oh, it wasn't a cross.
No. You have lines
Lines,
on your pinky fingers.
pinky fingers. Okay.
And according to the prints that I took on October 9th, 2012,
Right.
You had about 3 of them. And
Right.
now, apparently, you have much more than that, many more,
Yeah, there's quite a few on my finger here.
especially on your right finger, which means
it's on-
that you have the lines of genius, which means you are meant to speak, teach, and write, and that
Right.
you have a message for the masses and a gift. I didn't tell you this part, for making complicated ideas simple
Simple. Right.
for that mass audience. So, you can take a whole paragraph that I say and condense it down to one word, one sentence,
Okay. So
And-
I thought you said there was a cross in the palm of my hand, but I don't know what I thought you
No,
said.
it's a star.
It's a star. Okay. Sorry. Star. Okay. Got it.
And there are 6 lines crossing each other.
Okay. Got it.
Right? And you have more than one. So you have them down here in this area. Remember I told you about the volar pads? Okay. So the 5 fingertips, the volar pads look like little mountaintops. And between the 14th and 16th week in utero, they flatten out into like a tiny little topographical map of the hills and valleys. Okay. And of that mountain. And here, this is the mound of Venus.
Oh, that's why
this is the mound of the moon. Yes.
At some point there were mountains.
Yes.
Oh.
And, there's a planet for each of them. And in hand analysis, the palm is kind of like the roots, and these are the trees, and the fingerprints are the closest to the heavens. Okay. And this is Jupiter, and this is Saturn, and this is Apollo, and this is Mercury, and then there's your thumbs. And I was starting to say this morning that what makes us human, what distinguishes us from other animals, is the opposable thumb. And with that thumb, you can't reach your moon.
No.
Right?
No.
Because it's the part of you that reflects the sun, and it's the it rules the invisible realms.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And in your moon on both hands, you have loops, and which are the teacher of love, okay, the spiritual teacher, and stars, which again are the intuitive spiritual teacher. So, you know, it's coming at you from all directions. But you also told me, see these thumbs? That's what makes us human, because they've enabled human beings to make and pick up tools. And so these tools
Right.
that we used first, basically to hunt, you know,
Yeah.
we could hold a spear and throw it,
Right.
or pull a bow and make an arrow
And make an arrow.
carve the wood, you know, like
Yeah.
take a stone and make it into something else.
Right.
That's what we use the thumbs for. We get things literally under our thumb. We
Right.
make them into what we want them to be rather than what they
Right.
are. We invent. Okay. And then
Right.
we can hold a pen and we can write, and that creates a way of recording language.
Wow. Got it.
Yeah. So the thumb, there's, I don't know where the reference is, but I'm sure you've heard it either in Islam or in the Bible or wherever, the thumbprint of God.
Yes. Yes, of course. It's everywhere.
Yeah, it is.
It's actually everywhere. Yeah.
And if I could show you art here, and it's, we don't have, the, oh, there. Can you see
Yeah.
the detail?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a whirl. And it's like the galaxy spins. I just learned this the other day. The universe, or the galaxy, spins counterclockwise.
Right.
And the water, like in the southern hemisphere, goes one way down the drain and the other way in the northern hemisphere. My dad used to tell me that because he was from New Zealand. So,
Right.
you know, there's a constant spiraling dance, and it's in our DNA.
Right.
And, you know, so the coincidences that keep connecting the dots from one system of consciousness to another. For instance, the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching from Confucius' time, 500 years before Christ was born, and the 6 lines that make up a hexagram, broken and solid, they coordinate with the 64 codons of DNA and the 6 amino acids in each codon.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
just, it's infinite possibility. And that is why, you know, there are no 2 snowflakes identical, and there are no 2 fingerprints identical.
Right. Right. Wow.
But they fall into, as you put it, categories. So you are in the School of Peace, and let me tell you a little bit about the characteristics of people in the School of Peace.
Sure.
Their purpose is to live a life of balance. When they're not in balance, they're kind of like, I don't know if you remember circuses, you may be too young, but there used to be plate spinners, and they'd get, or on Ed Sullivan, I used to watch them.
Yeah, I remember. Sure.
Get the plate spinning, right?
Yeah.
And then get them all going at once. And everybody in the audience is just waiting for which one's going to go first.
Right.
And that's the fun of it. But, you know, and that one smashes and then they all go. But he's running around madly trying to keep them all spinning so they won't fall.
Right.
And that is what it is.
Totally feels like me.
Yes. And it comes from a need to have not only yourself at peace, but everyone that is in your circle, your inner circle, and radiating out from there, and eventually the entire world and the entire universe, before you can rest.
Right. Totally feels that way. I totally feel that way. It totally is exactly how I live my life. I have to have everyone at peace before I can be at peace.
Mm-hmm. And while you're running out, trying to get out ahead of it, because you know what's coming for this person before they do, right? And you're trying to prevent whatever it is you can see, you're off balance. So you lose your peace, but what replaces it is panic.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to be able to get it done in time.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So what you said earlier about the breath, that's the secret of peace for you.
Right.
Breathe. When you feel a panic attack coming on, breathe.
Right. Okay.
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 That's very practical. Why? Because it gets you back in your body.
Yeah.
And people in the School of Peace,
if I want to be,
people in the School of Peace are barely physically here. You didn't really want to, but you knew that you had to come into a physical form, that there was a reason for you to be here. And like you look at this, the insanity of this world and the pain that we cause each other gratuitously for no reason whatsoever, other than we feel like it, or we're in fear and that there isn't enough for us. And therefore it's me or you, and I got to kill you to get mine, craziness. And that you look at that war, the choice between war and peace. And peace is so obvious to you, but so unobvious to the majority of humanity. So you didn't want to come, but you came anyway. And you have a mission. And I would say for sure that it's now that you're being called.
Right. Okay.
So.
Wow.
And also you said.
There's still more.
There's more. Of course, there's always more. It's Shelora. There's more. If it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, there's more.
Right.
But particularly on this day of being reborn, because you've called me back to remembering, how much I love this art of hand analysis, because I marry the physical and the metaphysical. I'm just as fascinated by quantum physics as I am by, and astronomy and astrology, all the sciences, the arts and sciences and the humanities. And I was born, actually, I was on stage by the time I was 3, and I meant to be a speaker and a teacher and a writer, because I also have the lines of genius. And some people can't stand it. They're offended because I just know things and they don't know how I know. And I'm articulate and all these things.
Well, are you two a peacekeeper?
No. I'm born in the school of love. Okay. But you and I have the same thumbs.
Okay.
Which are master manifester thumbs. Okay.
Wow.
Which means whatever we put our mind to, we speak it, it falls out of our mouths. So we have to be careful what we think.
Yeah. True.
Yeah. But on the upside, we're meant to be massively wealthy.
Right.
We do get suckered into trusting people, and sometimes, occasionally, lose large amounts of money, but we always get it back. Okay. I don't know that. Is that true for you?
Yeah, it's true for me.
Yeah.
Very true for me.
And also having 8 arches as you do, there's that's an archetype that Richard gave the name La-di-da.
What does that
And
mean?
that doesn't make any, what does that mean? I said to him. And you may say, very well say to me, is it's like your need for balance and peace is so intense that you may just flip it off and go wing walking, you know?
Right.
It's just like, I'll go to the beach.
Right.
The hell with you. Take care of your own peace. I've had it.
So no wonder in my
I'm
dreams,
going
no wonder in my dream Mama showed up to remind me I have to get back to work.
Yes. And but it's the nature of your work is to be at peace. Oh, in the midst of chaos. And that's why that little piece of the puzzle where I learned scientifically that there is a tad more of whatever it is in the neutrino soup that surrounds us that leans one way than the other, which means the natural chaos creates this spin clockwise or anti-clockwise, whichever it is, I can't remember, that it creates order out of chaos because it's not exactly perfectly balanced, just like the spinning plate,
Right.
right?
Right.
It can only last so long and then it crashes. But that doesn't mean you stop spinning plates, do you? There's work to be done.
There's work to be done. You can't stop spinning plates. And if one's about to fall, you better put up another one to make sure the one that's about to fall doesn't fall.
Exactly. Exactly. And those are all the loves in your life. So I'm in the school of love, which is 70% of humanity. But my purpose or my highest ranking print on my thumbs is not loops, it's whirls, which is the school of service.
Right.
Right. And then on top of all that, there are these gifts and markers in your palms. That, you know, you have the only one that's in your fingerprints is the line of genius, and it's on top of your fingerprint. Okay. And there can be dramatic glyphics, is what fingerprints are called, and scientifically, they can be in your palms. They're rare, and they take precedence if they're higher ranking. So they are, which makes you a spiritual teacher. I've got the stars and so on. But you also told me a story about someone who came into your life and basically said, whatever you want, I'll help you get it.
Yeah.
And that's the manifester in you. Okay.
Right.
And it was for a higher purpose. It was for the store or whatever. And it was to create beauty and peace in the environment.
Yeah.
I actually remember talking to someone.
And she's the same person, and she's the same person whose husband passed away, and I was there at his deathbed. She's at my feet, and I asked the Lord, what do I do? And then I hear the words, tell her to find the peace. And I looked down at her and I said, find the peace. And yeah, she said that changed her life. It basically brought her the peace she needed to deal with the death of her husband, her greatest love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when you say she was at your feet,
she was literally.
What do you mean?
She was literally at my feet, you know, at my feet. At the I had to lift her up.
And where was her husband?
She was crying. He was in a stretcher being taken away.
Oh.
Yeah.
And somebody phoned you?
No,
How did you know to be there?
I just received a text on my phone when I was at Astral, and there was 3 words: her husband's name, heart, and help. 3 words.
So the person she called when her husband was having a heart attack was you. And by the time you got there, he was dead and being taken away. And you arrived in time to give her the words that she needed to hear to deal with losing the love of her life. That's an amazing story.
We became the closest of friends ever since. And well, she was drowned in grief, right? So I said, you can't stay here by yourself. You're all by yourself. And so I brought her home, and she stayed with me for a good year until she got back on her feet,
Wow.
was able to move on. And then she still comes and goes wherever I am. So we're still in touch, and we will be in touch, and we're like soul sisters for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Well, you have another marker in your hand. And
no.
you told me that before she came into your life and said, whatever you need, that someone had said, you're going to have the Midas touch.
That's right.
Was that a person who told you that?
I was at Astral Connections. We were having a psychic fair. We had many psychics come in for our psychic fairs.
Mm-hmm.
And her name was Joyce. She was a lovely, lovely, beautiful person. And everyone said that she had the most accurate reading. So I'm like, Joyce, will you do a reading for me today? I don't know why I feel like a reading.
Yeah.
And that was when she said what she said to me, that, you're going to be able to, in the next while, be able to say, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. And you'll be able to get whatever it is you want. And it'll
She
continue.
also called it the Midas touch.
Yeah.
Guess what you've got in your hand?
What?
Remember I said Jupiter, Saturn, Apollo, Mercury?
Yeah.
Leadership, money, creativity, communication.
Right.
Middle finger, money. Under your middle finger, right here.
Right.
The Midas star.
Oh, wow. Right.
On both hands.
On both hands. Okay.
And I didn't know to look for that until you said what you said. So I want you.
Okay, so tell me, Shelora, you sent me earlier today, you sent me 2 paragraphs, in yellow. Well, I didn't get to read those. What were those?
Oh. It's one paragraph, and it's the reincarnation cross.
That's it. That's what we were talking about.
Your human design chart, which is a whole other kettle of fish. But I did have it open for you, and it was 41. It's the numbers of the astrology of where your sun was on the day that you were born, and there's 4 numbers: where the earth was, where the sun was on the day you were born, and where the earth and the sun were on the day 88 days before you were born, when your soul came in to your DNA. Put that together. Jesus. I mean, like Einstein said, either everything's a miracle or nothing's a miracle. Your whole life is a miracle. All of us.
Yeah, all of us.
So, and you have, let me get my glasses, Jer. My purple glasses like to match. Whoops. You have the right angle cross of the unexpected. Okay. So your cross is the energy to bump into the unexpected and bring something forward through this experience. What you bring forward is not known at the time of the experience. Your energy will drive you to have expectations about what will become of this discovery, but these expectations may not be met. There's an old commercial where a man eating chocolate bumps into a woman eating peanut butter.
Right.
The fantasy reveals the product, Reese's peanut butter cups. And as you probably know, this seemingly unexpected event rendered a successful outcome through, although the combination could have easily tasted awful.
Right.
You're here to make the discovery and bring it forward. Expect the unexpected in your life.
Wow.
Yeah. And, you know, there are many other things about that, but the evolution into human design based on the hand analysis is just further evidence that at the level of our DNA, at the cellular level, we are the creation of God. And there's a message from our soul that's encrypted. And I've been blessed to be exposed to, invited to learn all these different systems.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
And to have the gift of telling people their story, the narrative of their story that integrates all these gifts into a purpose that they're here to fulfill while they're in physical form and beyond. I tend to believe, because it evolves, right? Because if you can trace what's in your DNA 88 days before you're born, right? And I've recently had some experience with losing a loved one who's still communicating from wherever it is that you go after you pass from this physical incarnation.
Wow.
And I would like to have conversations in depth and in detail with that person. And that's part of what I was looking for when you phoned me this morning. And so I'm feeling like, you know, the wonderful network that you have built.
Thank you.
Which mysteriously,
Disappeared.
unexpectedly, disappeared.
Right.
Now, why did that happen? You know, Reese's peanut butter cups.
Right.
It could be a disaster or not. It could be just clearing the decks.
Right.
For, you know,
a new
better, a higher platform.
Absolutely.
Right. So in your human design, at the conscious level, you are always trying to investigate and build a foundation of facts and details. You're always doing research. You're always gathering information,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And that's part of what the people that you draw to you, like
Absolutely.
you remember things that I said to you 8-9 years ago.
Sometimes.
That blow me away. Nobody remembers that. That I told you about Wayne Dyer's daughter's fingerprints, you know, like who remembers that? You do. So at the unconscious level, you're learning through mistakes. You learn by experience.
I do.
Yeah. And nobody can tell you.
No, it's true.
And you know, you'll put your
It's
faith
true.
in the
Nobody
wrong
can
people.
tell me. They can try telling me, but it won't be until I know for sure myself. It's so true.
That's right. Yeah. And they're telling you, don't trust this person.
Yeah.
Don't invest in that or whatever it is, you know?
Yeah.
I'm the same way. Oh God. But and you also challenge authority and establishments that don't work. You keep asking questions and constantly inquiring. That's because you need, and I do too, a solid foundation on which to build. It's like a house. If you don't have a solid foundation, your house is going to fall down. It'll be a house of cards. Right. And you go into the details of the problems. You get joy from solving them, the problems.
I do. That's true too.
You study a lot and you take classes and you participate in seminars and workshops. And that's what makes you feel safe and secure. Without the details, you can't build. And but the third line, which is the Martyr of the hexagram, this is what we're talking about. Hexagrams are built from the foundation up. The bottom line is line number 1, and it goes up to line number 6, which is the roof.
Right.
of the house. And you have a big view when you're
Right.
up on the roof, right?
Right.
Oh, they make mistakes, bump into the wrong people, and get stuck in the wrong situation. And there you are in the cross of the unexpected, unexpectedly bumping into the wrong person, getting stuck in the wrong situation. But you learn from your mistakes. And you constantly ask yourself, how did that affect me? What did I get out of that? What did I learn, right?
That's so true.
And you internalize the results. So you don't make the same mistake twice, thank God. But you can't understand it from somebody else's experience. You have to understand it from yourself. So words, not enough.
It's true.
That's because your focus is inward. That you are your own best teacher.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And you can't or won't teach what you haven't learned.
Yeah.
You have to
That's true.
master it.
That's true too.
Yeah. And you can't learn by watching somebody else do it. You don't learn how to be a potter by watching somebody make pots.
Right.
Right? Need to experience it and know it and live it. So
did we cover all the different things? So the difference between palm reading and hand analysis is essentially that hand analysis includes the fingerprints. Yes?
and it's not fortune telling. It's about possibility,
Okay.
and not prediction.
Okay.
Okay.
That's-
And it's about purpose. So that's what's in your fingerprints, but it's not just your soul's purpose, it's your soul's lesson.
Right.
And that is actually more important than your purpose, because until and unless you grapple with your lesson,
Right.
you're not going to be able to fulfill your purpose.
Right.
And so peace is your lesson because it's the lowest ranking. And you have the loops on the thumbs, which are about material world success.
Right.
And
So
that's a
it's-
marriage.
Does that mean that, so what's the ranking? If it's the lowest ranking, if there's only 2%, does that mean the majority of humanity has ascended, but I'm still down there ascending?
Exactly the opposite.
Oh,
70% of the world is in the school of love, the loop.
Okay.
Do you think they've ascended 70% of humanity? No, because in every school, there's the upside and the downside. So in the school of peace, it's when you get to the eye of the hurricane and you find the peace. And,
Right.
you know, the plates are still spinning, but you don't
Yeah.
feel that you have to keep them spinning. You
Yeah.
trust that they will spin on their own. Galaxies just spin.
right.
It's the nature of the universe.
I'm not quite there yet, but I'm really, really
Well,
close.
it's a big challenge, but
Yeah.
but when you're in heaven, you're there.
Right.
And when you incarnate, you do so for a reason. You
Right.
need a body in which to grow your soul. It's
Right.
like, you know, a petri dish, and you learn by experience. Whereas you're in a constant state of peace when you're not in a physical self. So, I mean, I don't know if you believe in incarnation and reincarnation and all of those things, but incarnation means in physical form.
Right. I know.
Meat,
Yeah.
carne,
Arnold.
you know,
Yeah.
the body bag. But I told you that there's the whirl, which is service, which is 25% of humanity, 70% love, 2.9% wisdom,
Right.
and 2.1 peace. So it's ranked as the lowest rank because it's the hardest lesson.
Right.
Okay.
Of course.
Because
it
in
is.
the school of wisdom, it's just about studying with your head. And
Right.
then the challenge in that one is to put it into action, what you know.
Right.
But peace is really to be the peace that you seek in the midst of the chaos, not take off and go to the beach to get away. And I do remember also that, when my dear friend Alan, who has recently departed and is somewhere else having a laugh on us, I tell you, he's giggling.
Yes.
And he's so thrilled because there's nothing to be afraid of in dying, but the only way he could learn that, he has the same lines as you. He's a martyr heretic, and he had to learn it by doing it. And now he's coming back to say, you were right. There's nothing to be afraid of.
Right. Of course.
Didn't help him when his body was hurting so bad. He was just lashing out, and then finally he wanted them to give him the needle. And
Right.
Jane and I just said, you want to go back about 500 lifetimes and have to do it all over again? Just don't. But we didn't say a thing. And, the universe conspired to let him know that if that's what he wanted, he needed to have planned for that far in advance. And he had a year and he never put anything in writing. I ended up having to write his will, but whatever. And I got him to sign it. And the minute he signed it, he said, okay, give me the needle. But I managed to talk to the doctors and get, with him in the room and his son in the room. And they said, no, we're going to sedate him so that he won't feel the pain and that it'll be gentle and we will reduce the oxygen. The things you learn about dying. So I got to be with him and just breathe with him. And then I understood that dying is simply breathing in and breathing out and not breathing in again. That's all it is.
Right. So beautiful. Such a beautiful definition of death. Breathing in and breathing out, not breathing in again.
Yeah. And that just came out. Because I had the first bit, it's breathing in and breathing out. But the final bit is simply not breathing in again. It's not this big, dramatic, scary thing. It's so gentle.
Right.
And that's why I got to sit beside him and breathe with him. And when I arrived on Christmas Day, his son came down and I said, how is he? And he said, I don't know, he's acting crazy. I said, what do you mean by acting crazy? He said, he wants me to sit beside his bed, hold his hands, look in his eyes, and not stay for hours. That's
Right.
not crazy. That's a man who's afraid to be alone when he dies.
Right. Wow.
But I managed to take his son from that took me 4 days, but I did it. It's time to say goodbye to your dad. And we've already talked about that. No, I think it's time to say goodbye. And so he did. He stood beside his dad, and his son happens to be morbidly obese, like somewhere between 350 and 400 pounds. And he's got a beautiful, deep voice. And he said, thank you for the honor of living together for the last 7 years so I could get to know you.
Oh,
And
so beautiful.
He told him, you don't have to worry about me. I'll be okay. And then he started to cry. And he said, I don't do this. And he turned away and he went back and locked himself in his room again. And I went over to Alan's bed and I looked in his eyes and he said, finally.
Oh. Oh.
So I know that I did what I was there to do. I did all the other things as well because he hadn't had the physical care, but that's what he was holding on for. And afterwards, I talked to his son and he said, I was trying to be strong for my father. And I said, he didn't want you to be strong. He wanted you to be vulnerable.
Right. Of course. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. So, you know,
Thank you,
ta-
Shelora. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing this emotional experience. Sorry to everyone that this was more about my hand instead of.
please don't apologize, because this is the beginning of a radio show that we are going to do together.
Okay.
You're going to have whoever you want, invite them as your guests to further the cause of peace so that we can keep the peace on this planet. So please don't apologize for that.
Okay. We will do that. We absolutely will do that. I look
We are
forward to
doing it right here and now.
We're doing it right here and right now. And I would like, Shelora, you to be my first guest to discuss peace with me on my show. So, and I very much look forward to that. Thank you for everything. And is there anything you want to share? I don't even know if we covered everything in the hand or if you wanted to share anything specific or anything. We had fun and we had.
Really, to sum it up, we're all here for a purpose. And by integrating our life lesson, it gives fuel to us to fulfill our purpose. And we are full of gifts and talents. They're right here, and you know them in your soul. And this is the time that we were born for. And anyone who is awake and conscious, you have a role to play. And we've got a planet to save. So let's get busy.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shelora. God's in your hands and God's in my hands, and we're in God's hands.
That's it.
Thank you. Honor to have you again. Thank you,
Most
Shelora.
welcome. Thank you. Adieu.